A woman who went up in front of CPAC and said, "I was never a slave in America," as if that's the only form of discrimination, is what has led her community to call her not Candace, but Clandace. The first ever female black woman who appears in her rhetoric against blacks, calling LeBron James dumb and stupid, an icon to the black community, as Clandace. Simultaneously, you have the Jewish community beginning to call her not Candace Owens, but Candace Ovens, because her Goebbels-style rhetoric against Jews, that Jews are nearly all pedophiles. The State of Israel has set up a Theodor Herzl, a pedophile, as a haven for pedophiles. That Judaism is a demonic, satanic cult that only protects pedophiles. And by the way, her absolute obsession with Jewish sexuality and Jewish genitalia, the first lady of France, Brigitte Macron's genitalia, is disturbing. It's one of the reasons I think she hates Sigmund Freud so much, because she's a Freudian field dream in terms of his arguments that the greater the sexual suppression and repression, the greater we see violence. But when you say that the Jews killed JFK because he was about to ostracize Israel, when you invent all of these fabrications out of whole cloth, what is the result? The result is the demonization of Jews that leads to violence. PIERS, just 1 week ago, 2 days after Candace falsely accused me, as she has for 2 years, of being a murderer, of threatening to kill her, something for which she will face legal action, because you cannot malign a rabbi and his daughter as murderers. 2 days later, I was swatted in my house, where 5 police cars had to break into my house because Mayor Michael Wilds of Englewood, New Jersey, received an email, arguably from one of Candace's followers, after she said essentially what Henry II says: "Who will rid me of this troublesome priest?" Which again is the nonstop attack against Jews, the demonization. If you are a Christian, then I am the second coming of Christ.
Okay.
And I think right now it's important for people to understand that radical Judaism is also a thing, and you're watching an example of it right now on your screen. The person sitting across from me, or sitting next to me, I guess, posted on his Facebook page in 2016 a tribute to someone who he said was his mentor. That was Rabbi Menachem Schneerson. He said he was his mentor and his friend. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Rabbi Schneerson, there were some Jews who believed that he was and is the Messiah. So rejecting Christ, but believing that that rabbi was his Messiah. Now, you may remember in the news recently, there was this radicalized faction of the Lubavitch Orthodox community in Brooklyn that were digging tunnels in Brooklyn and hurling benches at police officers. Well, and by the way, this is per the Times of Israel, that faction of individuals are followers of Rabbi Schneerson. So again, you have Rabbi SHMULEY who believes that that's his mentor. They believed that he was the Messiah. What is it? It becomes important to understand, what did Rabbi Schneerson preach? Well, he preached Jewish supremacism, the hatred of all non-Jews. And you don't have to take my word for it, because if I said it, they would say that's anti-Semitism. You should instead take the word of the 2 Jewish professors who translated his work. Those authors' names were Israel Shahak and Norton Mezvinsky. And their book was entitled Jewish Fundamentalism in Israel. From that book, we learned that SHMULEY's mentor, Schneerson, describes the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. And he says, quote, "Thus, we do not have a case of profound change in which a person is merely on a superior level. The body of a Jewish person is of totally different quality from the body of all nations of the world." And he talks about the substance of the Jewish body versus the substance of non-Jews, saying that the inner quality, quote, is so different and so great that the body should be considered completely different species.
That she would say the Jews killed Michael Jackson. And with all due respect, PIERS, you have not said that one of those things, that I'm a murderer, a man who doesn't have a speeding ticket, who doesn't have a parking ticket, is a...
You know, we kind of all said the same thing. Israel is our friend and ally. I count myself among those people. Post-October 7th, the world, and especially, I would say, Zionists in media, were demanding that we all pay attention. And when we began to pay attention, we didn't like what we saw. You cannot tell me to ever feel comfortable with 18,000 children being ruthlessly murdered. You can't get me to feel comfortable as a Christian with the amount of more explosives dropped, tons of explosives dropped on Gaza than were dropped in Hiroshima. this doesn't make sense to me. Gaza is 30 miles long, 7 miles wide. It's incredibly dense population. And this is, by the way, according to Haaretz, that 40,000 Palestinians have been murdered. I believe they're getting those numbers from the Gaza Health Ministry. And here's what I would like to say to you, Rabbi, since you're quoting scripture, okay? The one that's relevant to me is, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness. And if you'd like to dive into a little more scripture, I think what's relevant is Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. And I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley. The fact that you would try to say, I am Jewish, and this is what I believe, and do and say the things that you are doing. People can see and hear evil, and what you are doing right now is an act of evil. The lies that you are telling, not just on me, but also on my family members, are a good example for the world to see what we are referring to when we call something radical Zionism.
Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Recha HaKodash, and double honors to the elder apostles and the bishops of Great Millstone. Honors as well to you, brethren, you fellow believers of this truth, and shalom to the elect. Anyway, because of the nature of the video, I don't think I'll be able to say very much, because it's kind of crazy how when it comes to this particular situation and what they say happened to him in the mid-1900s, right? And if anybody comes and say that this doesn't seem legit, then they have that word thrown on them, right? But there's people going around saying blacks sold blacks into slavery, which a nation sold another nation into slavery, and then our people had a hand in it. Okay. But then there's people, they won't say that main tyrant that's supposedly been behind it was one of them as well. So they won't say anything like that. And they won't say that's white on white crime. You see what I'm saying? So it seems like the money, the financial support, the medium, I say medium, which goes to middle, right? They have the influence over what happens to you. But in 2025, people are saying what we've been saying. Now, Candace Owens, got to give her credit. I don't know what's going on in that situation, or she'll even be around next month. I don't know. But she was going in. Okay? And so what's happening is, this is the reason why people would want the Bible. Right? Now, you got some Christians who say, and Christians support them, right? All the black Christians say, yep, they're the people of God. And we see nothing happening according to what God said for them to do. Right? This is what's being said. Now, we all know when the people of God is set up, the people of the Most High, say Yahweh, they will set the whole nation up right. All people will have to, like if we came into power, right, as us Israelites, we would set everything in order. Everything's got to be in order. But this is how you know that they're not, because they're only singling out themselves to reap the benefits, so everybody else can be animals, and then they can use verses like this. What I'm gonna get? Where am I at? Let me get this. What did I have? I don't think I have it up, but let me get that scripture again. Let's get Ezekiel 9. Right, 9 and 4. What was it? 9 and 4. And the Lord said, the Lord said to him, and the Lord said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and cry for all the abominations that is done against the midst thereof. So people will think, see, this is really talking about Jerusalem, the land, when Jerusalem is a people before it's a place. So you can see how they would take something and make it fit, right? And that's dangerous. Verse 5. And to the others he said in mine hearing, go after him through the city and smite. Let not your eyes spare neither have pity, slay utterly old and young, both maids and little children and women, but come not near any man upon who have the mark, and begin at my sanctuary. So it's kind of crazy how somebody can take themselves, and I got to speak in circles or codes, whatever you want to call it, but it's crazy how somebody will take, right, is you know, when they'll take an identity and say it's them just to use an excuse to do the things that they do, right? Now, we know this prophecy is going to come, but we all know the children of Israel are scattered from one end of the earth even to the other. So how come they all pretty much look like that? And according to the prophecy, right, when the people of the Lord get back in their land, right, there will be peace. Right? So when it says go through the midst of the city go to citizens or people. Right? Another name for people or nation. So as they go through the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, right, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and cry for the abominations in the midst thereof. Right? So it's kind of crazy. Like, for an example, you got someone who can just, you know, let's say going back to the Boston Celtics. I just like giving examples. The Boston Celtics back in the 60s, and where Bill Russell won all these championships, only 9 teams, but he won a lot of championships, right? And then you figure 50 years later, somebody steals the identity and say it's them, and they get special treatments and fundings and acknowledgments for being the greatest team ever. You know, I'm just making an example. This is what they did with Mozart. This is what they did with going back to the Messiah, right? And then you had the people who will take themselves and say that they're them, and then Christians are Christians, and then they subscribe to it. Well, the Christian community, right, subscribed to it and said, well, we are different from them. When according to the Bible, that when you read the scriptures, the Christians were Jews as well, right? Converts back to being an Israelite, right? Because they were already Jews, but converts back to their nationality. And this is where the problem comes, when they separated it and made it seem like it was a totally separate situation. Jew and Gentile, meaning talking about the other nations. And they paid these scholars, and these scholars went along with it. And then they used this Latin Gentile, which is not a Hebrew or Greek word, or they used Greek, right? And Gentile and people, you know, and they try to put it all together and make it seem like it was totally different nations. Acts 11:26. And when he had found him, he brought him to Antioch, and came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church and taught much people, and the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch. So we see that the reason why it was Jew and Gentile, or Jew and Greek, you had believers in the Messiah, the Father, but didn't believe in the resurrection. They didn't believe in the Messiah. But this was still talking about Israelites. These were still talking about Jews. And then they brought us this Western culture dogma, white plantation Christianity, and then made a separation when a Christian is a Jew. So now they're saying that the dogma that they push, that even if you're a Christian of another nation, right, which our people will look like different nations. So Revelation 7:9. So if you're a Christian of another nation, but of not ethnic Israel, then you can become a Jew. What kind of madness is that? But then when the Christians go over there and try to ask to be part of them, they spit on them. Ain't that make sense? So what I did, it takes not long to do a little bit of research. Viacom, right? Which Nick Cannon is under. I'm going to keep it clean. which I believe they set him up anyway. I believe that was all set up. They claim he was a Hebrew Israelite. You know, the best way to infiltrate or to destroy is from within. To say, hey, say you this, go in, make yourself look bad. We'll sweep it under the rug. We control the media. I don't know. I'm just saying. There's always possibilities. Anyway, Viacom CBS is publicly traded company. Trading company. Sounds familiar, like your NBA and NFL, how they just doing the trades and nobody sees what the hell is going on, right? And this man is talking about certain things in the industry, and you know, all these people are traders, and they got, look up that J word in the online etymology and watch what it say. I'm not even going to say nothing. Just look it up. You'll see what it says. Owned by shareholders, controlling stock. It sounds familiar. So how are they putting so much emphasis on what so-called happened to them when all through the Barbary and transatlantic slave trades, right, that they used the Arabs and the supporting cast and wiped out damn near the Taino Indians, right? Wiped out the Native Americans. Then went and got more slaves from West, and you don't think you're going to have to pay for that? Yeah, okay. That ain't what the Bible say. Let's see what the Bible says. I'll get back to that in a second. Let's see what the Bible say. Let me get a Luke 8:17 real quick. For nothing is a secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known, you know, and come to be brought to the light. Nothing that's been done is this is, look, man, we were just brought here for slavery. That's it. You ever wonder why Ray Lewis and all these people get these restaurants and they open these restaurants up, these black business owners? I remember this guy here named LeVan Hawkins. He had a Checkers restaurant. It was kind of like an offshoot of Burger King. And he set it up right across the street from Burger King. And all the black people, so-called black people, including myself at that time, this years back, and we supported that company, right? We supported that business, right? Because everybody was saying it's black owned. So we see it's a conspiracy. They don't want so-called black owns to thrive. Do you know they made him a settlement offer, made him sell out, and they turned his Checkers into another fast food restaurant? I think it was a McDonald's, and then they turned that to a Burger King. Oh no, it was a Burger King. It was a Checkers. You had a McDonald's across the street, and then they turned the Checkers into a Burger King. So you had a McDonald's and a Burger King. You also understand, when I did the research, Chick-fil-A, owned by Issachar, a little a cart that they own. Yep, bought that and made it a billion-dollar industry. Taco Bell. All this stuff is built off of us and our blood, man. Right? That which is to be is that which has been is now, and that which is to be have already been. And God required that which is past. Let me get another one real quick. Let me go on. Yeah, let me get another one real quick. So the Lord required that which is past. There's no getting around that, man. Let me go on back, read more of this. Anyway, the owners of the National Amusements are the Redstone family, led by Viacom, founder of Summer Redstone, and his daughter, Sherry Redstone, right? So this is what I found. Summer Redstone, right? This is him right here. Went to a little Wikipedia. Don't take much to find this stuff out. Summer Mary Redstone is the Rothstein. Yeah, I'm not going to read any more of that, but maybe read a little more. Media magnate, founder and chairman of Incarnation of Viacom, chairman of CBS Corporation, merged with various other National Amusement, Paramount Pictures, Forbes, geriatric psychiatrist. No, he was examined by one. Yeah, I'm not going to read all this for the sake of the video. Here we go. Redstone's translation of the Yiddish name Rothstein. Yeah, okay. So, as I brought up the clip with Puff Daddy, I said, okay, with Puff Daddy, who owned the record label what they call that? Bad Boys Entertainment, right? Of course, they allow us to make a name like that. It's all foolery and buffoonery, right? So he owned Bad Boy Entertainment. So I said, well, who funded him to have Bad Boy Entertainment? Well, it goes on to say it was funded in 1993. Bad Boy ventured contract with Clive Arista Davis, right? Clive Davis, right? Because what happens is when we get things, just like Black Lives Matter, when we get things, whether how small it be, the funding comes in. And when that funding comes in, then they can take control of it. If they see it profitable, just like Nike and various other businesses, if they see it profitable, they'll jump in and take control of it, like Black Lives Matter was, I believe, was set up anyway. But it was funded by Juris and various others, right? So we go here. Sean Diddy Combs received funding from investors, including Ron Berkeley, Diego, and others. So we looked him up, right? Now this man was supposed to have been, notice all of them, like Berkshire, all of them have a story where they was busting their ass in a restaurant or doing some dishes, right? Working in a grocery store. You know the rest. We know what's up, okay? We know what's up. There's some of them that go to certain colleges and it's just there. It's a pampering party, so to speak. But anyway, Ronald Wayne Berkeley, right? Co-founder of the Eucapia, right? Eucapia companies. Eucapia or something like that. And I went into it and read, and it says he started out in a grocery store pushing carts. I would like to see if anybody seen that, but who knows? It might have been all set up. It says, I'm not going to read all of this. His investments, part owner of the Pittsburgh Penguins, National Hockey League, the MLS, Sacramento Republic. So he's got his hands in everything. So my point is, when they say they had such hardship and all these things that happened, the question is, how do you prosper out of something like that? You had the so-called blacks and Native Americans who was totally destroyed all the way down. And here you got Michael Jordan, right? Who is, let me see here. Yeah, Michael Jordan, who made Nike great, right? Just like Joseph made Egypt great. Michael Jordan made Nike $1 billion corporation, right? And he's just getting pennies off of the dollar. He's rich. He's not going to complain. But why isn't it his? Why can't he now create his own venture? Because the contracts from day one. A lot of these athletes that get these contracts, it's a lot. I'm stuttering around words I can't talk about much, but a lot of them get these contracts. They're with with and attract is an agreement, and these agreements, if you don't fulfill the agreement, we put the taxes on you or whatever. And they talk about Michael Jackson, who wanted to own his royalties. Yeah, you see what happened to him, right? You see Prince, who wanted to own his outright. See what happened to him. See, they understand that Negroes try to get too big, and we got to bring them down. This is why it's in the contracts. This is what happened to P. Diddy when you do the research on him. They would have let him go with all that. And you got to understand, he's at the bottom of the barrel. Do you know how much rings go through that Hollywood? He's the gatekeeper. He's the one bring them to him, right? And we're not going to say who, for the sake of the video. Let's get Jeremiah 30:16, right? Jeremiah 30:16. It's a lot I could say, but you get the point. Therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. And they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. So the Lord is the one, as 1 Samuel 2:7 say, the prayer of Hannah, the Lord maketh rich and maketh poor. So when Job 9:24 says the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, it's really going into the funding, the riches. Whoever owned the riches owned the world, right? That's point blank. And of course, the Assyrian Babylonians should still be in power because they had the riches. So there has to be some higher power that will intervene. Whoever got the riches in the military, all right, and you know, you got the influence as far as the religion and the banks and everything else. But whoever owns the wealth, right, owns everything. So we got to look at the history of a people that says all these things happen and still to this day get super funded, still own everything, and control the narrative and the destruction of so-called black families, right? And the Housing Removal Act, right? Well, the Fair Housing Act was originally the Housing Negro Removal Act, who got the fathers out of there. And then they used feminism to say if he should be a man and toxic masculinity really is him supposed to be a man to be able to support his family, although we were all oppressed together. So let's lift up the woman and put her on a high seat and make him look bad so the man has to leave the house when really if it's supposed to be housing for families. Doesn't the father, don't you look at the word family, which comes from father, right? The patriarchy. Why isn't he involved? We can also surmise that who is involved in this behavior, who funded, when anybody takes the account, the luxury of having things, and when things go wrong, they should also take the fall, right? So all the fundings in the political arenas that set up to destroy us, they want to back out and say, well, it was me too. We went through these things too. Right? When you're complete thieves. That's all I have.